Hey, thanks for joining the channel. In this episode, we are making this one-piece wooden carved draped flag. Stay with us, and I'll show you how to do it.
Desperado, sitting in a old Monte Carlo, a man whose heart is hollow.
All right, so as I stated in the intro, this flag is made from one 2x12 by 4 foot long. And we're going to get in the steps here, but the first steps are going to be measuring it. So I took some time, and I'll try to put some diagrams in here to talk to, some of the dimensions that I'm talking to. I think that of the other videos out on YouTube, I think that's where I struggled, is following the instructions on the dimensions. But keep that in mind. But step one here is marking out your cut lines and getting this thing cut into a general shape, and then start carving. Stay with us. Hey, thanks for joining the channel again. We're going to get going on step one here. So step one is you're going to need a 2x12 by 4 foot. So again, a 2x12 is 11 1/8 inches wide, or at least that's what this one is. I think that's a standard width. And step one here is you're going to want to find the middle of this board and mark a line down the middle of the board. And from that line and from the dimensions of the board, we'll start marking off what we're going to cut and our carving. All right, now that I've got this marked, again, what you may want to take in consideration on your board is cracks and blemishes and knots and things like that. So, however, it's my experience in making these draped flags, the more character you can put in, the better off. I'm a little concerned about the split down the middle. It's pretty bad, but it's the same on both sides. But pick the side that you want to have facing you, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to label one end of this board as the top, and obviously the other end of the board is the bottom. So the first thing we're going to do is mark down on one side. We're from the bottom left, we're going to mark up 6 inches and put a little mark on the edge. Top, we want to find the center, and we want to go 1.5 inches on either side of that center. So at the top of our draped flag, basically it's going to be 3 inches wide, 1.5 inches off each center. Now, I want to connect this mark, which is 1.5 inches from the center, to the mark that I marked 6 inches from the bottom. We'll draw that line, and that's going to be one piece that I'm going to cut off. Okay, on the other side, I'm going to find the bottom, and I'm going to mark up 18 inches. And put a mark there, and then I'm going to connect that 18-inch mark to the other 1.5-inch mark at the top on the other side of the center. So before I go any further, I'm going to cut these two pieces off. There are a few other marks that I need to make here and some cuts, but just to simplify things, I'm going to put this down and cut it with a circular saw and cut these off, and then we'll be back and I'll show you these other marks. Okay, the next cut I'm going to make is on the side that I made the cut all the way down except for 6 inches from the bottom. So I'm going to call that the right side of the flag, as the flag is facing away from me. On the right hand side, I'm going to mark from my previous mark 6 inches up to the center of the board at the bottom. So I'm going to cut this piece off. This is going to be kind of a triangle shaped area on the flag. The one thing I would mention also, don't get too hung up on these exact measurements. They're just a guide. This is how I make my flags in the shape. If you want to make it a different shape, you can certainly make it a different shape. If you make a mistake, you can certainly, adapt it. There's no one way that the flag lies, but this is just kind of the standard dimensions and measurements that I take from the get-go, and then the wood kind of tells me what direction to go from there. So I'm going to cut this piece off, and then we'll mark the other side of the flag and cut that side. Okay, we are done cutting on the right side of the flag. Now let's go to the left side of the flag. A little bit more angles and whatnot to cut here, so you know, hang with me and we'll go from there. But what we're going to do is measure up 2 inches We're just going to measure up 2 inches and put a mark here. So that's the height that I want that cut, and then I'm going to measure over 3 inches from the center line. So I'm measuring 3 inches over from the center line, and it's two inches up from the bottom. And then that's going to be my other cut here, angle. Okay, so I've made that cut. Now we want to put a little notch in the flag here. So I'm going to go back up where you're, again, on the left hand side here, where you have cut the angle down 18 inches from the bottom. I want to find that mark. I want to go in 1.5 inches. So again, I'm just going in 1.5 inches and marking that. Alright, so just to give you a visual here, so again, we're on the left hand side of the flag. I cut this angle off here. Now I want to go up where my left angle comes down 18 inches up from the original bottom, and find that. I want to go in 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to mark that line, and then I'm going to go take that line all the way down. So I want to remove this. This is just going to be kind of like a little tab that lays off the flag here. So it'll make sense once I cut this. But just be careful when you cut this corner here with your skill saw that you don't go in too deep, because you'll see that cut. You'll see me just start the cut, and then when I get close, I'll use a saber saw or a hand saw and cut the rest. Okay, just to give you a visual here, so I'm just cutting a notch in here, and this will make sense once we start carving. But again, you can also see that I've got a little bit of a saw mark here. I'm not concerned, don't be concerned about that. We're going to round these edges off. We're going to carve the edges and get rid of all of that information, all those defects. But really, that's all the cutting. That's all the cutting that needs to take place. Now I'm going to start marking where I need to start carving. Okay, again, we're done cutting here, so all the marks that I have on here are going to be just guidelines for carving. So let's talk about the easiest one first. Again, as the flag is facing away from me, left hand side, your right hand side as you're viewing it, you want to measure up 12 inches, put a mark, and you're going to put a guide, just a straight line from this corner here over to here at 12 inches. This is going to get carved down to about 1 inch or 1.5 inches, somewhere in there. And then on both sides, you want to start here at the notch side. Again, on the left side, start at the notch and then go all the way up to the top and put a mark at 1 inch and draw a line. Again, we're going to carve this down to create kind of a fold in the flag on this side. And then we're going to do the same thing on the right hand side. So again, you're going to go over 3 inches from this corner, put a mark, and then you want to go 1 inch over from this edge at the top, and just put a straight line all the way down here. This is going to again be a fold of the flag on this side. Again, this will make sense once we start carving it. So now that I've got these, let me get my carving unit set up and we'll talk about that. Okay, now we get to the messy and the dangerous part. So I'm I am using a right angle grinder here. I have a special tool that I purchased on Amazon. You can actually see a review of that tool up in the upper right hand corner. I'll include a link. But it basically is a carving head with 6 teeth on this that I'll use for the carving. Now I've only used this a couple times on this type of flag. In the past I've used a disc grinder that I've attached to my right angle grinder, and that worked pretty well, but it's just dirtier. I'm hoping this works a lot better. We'll see. It's kind of an experiment here. You could also cut this. Again, I'm trying to get about half the thickness here. So this is a 1.5 inch thick board. I want to get down to 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch, down to that depth. Just to create some 3D dimensions here. So the message here is be careful no matter what you use. If it's this carver unit, if it's a sander, if it's a saw, you know, make sure you have the proper PPE. And I'm going to put gloves on. You'll see me put gloves on when I do this. So good luck with this. I'm going to start at the bottom here, what I call the triangle of the flag. And I'm going to use this line as my guide. So I'm going to try to remove about 1 inch. 3/4 of an inch or 1 inch of material here till it looks good, and then put a round edge on this triangle here. So let's do it. Okay, as you can see, that thing does a wicked job. It's, again, very dangerous, so be careful if you do determine to use that one. Although it does really quick work, which is what I like. So this is just rough carved. I'll come back in here with probably a right angle grinder disc pad and smooth this out. Although you could leave this. You could just sand this down a little bit. And maybe that's what I'll do. I do like the texture that's associated with the carving, kind of a random texture. But I've got the triangle at the bottom made, and now I'll work on these two side angles here, which are going to be smaller and probably a little bit tougher. So we'll see what happens. Okay, as you can see, that carver really removes a lot of material really fast. So it's again, can't stress enough, be careful with it. Take little passes. I probably was aggressive in some of these areas. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my right angle grinder and put a 40 grit or an 80 grit disc pad on it, and I'll start you know, evening up some of these lines and smoothing out some of these divots, and you know, it's going to look quite a little bit different. But part of the character of these flags is the imperfections in this. So again, no rights or wrongs. This is just the start of my dimensions here. I went a little deeper on the bottom triangle and the sides, about 1 inch on the bottom triangle and about 3/4 of an inch on the sides. But again, that's up to you. You just want to add some three-dimensional to this. But the next step here is to keep sanding, rough sanding, really. Again, I'm going to use a right angle grinder with the disc sander if you don't have one of those. You know, an 80 grit, 40 grit random orbital sander would get you there. So it's going to take a little more time. But let's get to more sanding. All right. I think I'm done with this from a sanding standpoint. It's not perfect. I don't want it to be perfect. Again, you can sand this to you know, whatever texture. Just remember, there's really no defects on this. It's all character, depending on what you want it to look like. But the next steps here is I'm going to go in these grooves on the side and here and torch it pretty good, pretty strong. And then I am going to give it a light torch all the way across, again, just for more texture. Okay, so I'm going to start with the red stripes. The taping can be pretty monotonous because you've got to tape off one color and then come back and tape off that color after it dries to get the second color. So I'm using frog tape,
the size of the tape that I'm using is 1.88 inches, which is pretty close, 1.5 inch to the flags I normally make, but this is a little bigger dimension flag. So this proportional, this is the right size of stripe. And I'm just going to work on the bottom down here. Okay, so now it's time to put stripes on this. For the bottom part, I want my stripes to run this direction. Then on the top part, they are going to run parallel to this this notch that I put in here, this little valley. So they're going to run this direction up here. But for down the bottom, I'm going to put the stripes going this way. I want to start off with a red stripe. So a red stripe is going to be, and I'm going to try to get 6 stripes down here. I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to, because I'm not going to put, where I don't tape is going to be red, I want my marker to start way at the bottom here, and I want it to start approximately right there. So that's where I'm going to start my tape. I'm going to go down here and try to get so my angle is right. And I'm going to tape this all the way around on the bottom. And because both edges here are going to be exposed to red stain in this case, I want to spend some time getting these edges smushed down. And once I get in a good spot, then I want to put my marker down. Do the same thing. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. Again, I'm working on red first, so where it's not taped is going to be red. Eventually where it is taped is going to be white. And then I'm going to start with a red stripe going this way to work up my way up the flag this way. So that's how you mark these. We'll go into staining them. Alright, now that I've got this taped off, and again I'm starting with red, you can start with the white ones. Red's just a little easier because I know I want to end right here. I did put this piece of tape up here. This is going to represent where the red stripe is going to be that starts my stripes going this way. I use Min Wax. This is a crimson formula, so crimson red formula. I'm going to put it on with a brush and then rub it off, leave it on for a little bit and then rub it off with a rag. When I put this on, I'm going to try to brush away from the seam here as much as I possibly can. I found that helps with the bleeding, but I am going to get some bleeding. You're going to get some bleeding no matter what. Don't worry about it. We can come back later and fix that up. But let's do some staining. Alright, this turned out really good. I don't have much bleeding at all, if any. If I did have some bleeding, I would go in with some sandpaper or an X-Acto knife and try to cut some of those edges. I also use a torch to kind of darken up some of those edges just to make it a little cleaner. But I'm really happy with this, the way this has turned out. So what I'm going to do next is I'll put my strip here again, which represents my red stripes going this way, and then I'll come back in here with white and do the same thing, and this part will be done as far as stripes. Alright, for my white, I really haven't found a good white stain, mid-wax or anything else, so I use latex paint, white indoor or outdoor latex paint. I will put this on using the same technique, so I'm going to go from the tape in to the wood to try to avoid any bleeding. But I'm also going to put it on super light, and I'll probably put a stripe on and wipe it off. What I'm looking for is more like a whitewash look, and I don't want that paint to dry and set up or sit in the grain of the wood very long. So that's what you're going to see me do here, is apply the white in a whitewash technique. Okay, I really like the look here. Let's see what kind of edges I got. Let's start removing the tape. That one looks really good. That one looks really good. Little bleeding there, but overall I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. I've got a little bit of a gap here. I've got a little bit of a gap here that I'll come back and either burn or I'll tape off again and put white on there just to make up that little extra space. I'll probably put white on there, but that's how it's supposed to look when you're taping this off and doing it. Again, no rights or wrongs here. You can leave the stain or the paint on as long as you want to get the look that you want. This is just what I'm going after. Okay, now that I've got the bottom done and painted and stained, the first area that I'm going to stain or paint above this line is going to be this right hand side of the flag that has a little dip in it, edge. It's the opposite side of the little knob here. So it's really a straight edge, the longest straight edge on the right hand side of the flag. So it's going to be all red. So I've taped this off so I don't get red on my stripes down below the line. This is where I used my little gauge here and I put that on the edge and bent that over. So really a guide, but doesn't have to be 100%. So I put that, this is going to be the equivalent of one stripe, and I put this so I can make 7 stripes between here and here, both red and white stripes. So it's probably going to be 4 reds and 3 whites, is my guess. And then when I get to this line, everything above this line is going to be my union or blue. So I just used my little gauge to kind of give me a mark. It doesn't have to be exact because when I get close to this I can adjust my stripes a little bit, either thinner or fatter, to make sure I hit that mark, and you're really not going to be able to tell. But let's do that now. So this is going to be 1 red stripe from here up to my union. Alright, I feel really good about this. I've got a little bit of a bleed here. I'm going to take some sandpaper and just sand that edge. This is going to be blue, so it'd be easy to cover that up once I sand it a little bit, and then we'll go from there. The next step here is I'm going to tape this off, and this is going to be all blue for the union, and we'll put the stars on and carve those stars in, so you'll get to see that. Just a couple tips here. You can see here I've got a gap between the red and white. I'll come back and tape this and probably put red in here to do that. I've dripped a couple whites or get some stain of red on white. Just use some sandpaper to go and sand that off and add some character to it. You can also just leave it. A lot of times it looks fine. But anyway, this is where I'm at right now. I got to do a little touch up right here, and then you'll see me put the union on with the blue stain. Okay, just like the red stain, I use Minwax. This is navy blue for the unions, and I'll just put those on. This is going to go pretty fast because I've only just got this little area of tape here that I got to be really careful. So use the same techniques going from the tape onto the wood to avoid leaking, and we'll get this union done. Alright, at this stage I've got all the taping and painting done, which is always a good stage to be at. It's a lot of work putting the tape on, removing, double taping to cover up some of the colors, etc., etc. So now we're going to work on the union. So I get my templates off Amazon. I'll include the link down below, but this is like a 10 by 14, I believe, template off Amazon. It's just plastic, and it really isn't any right or wrong on this. The only kind of watch out here is that you want your star tip facing up, and I use the angle. Your union would be like this. Now, because of the angle of the flag here, I'm gonna have to pencil
my cutouts here and then come back up here and add a few stars to make it look appropriate. But you know, the point of the star on the flag is always facing up, so that's to be accurate. That's the way it should be done. So what I'll do is I'll put this stencil on here and get a pencil out and start penciling these, and then I hand carve them using a Dremel, which you'll see here in a future video. All right, now that I've transferred the template, the stars off the template on here using, I had like a black pencil that gives me a good outline here, and then I also used just a regular mechanical lead pencil. But so now I'm going to use my Dremel, and I'll include the bit head that I use. I believe it's a 105, but I'll put that in the subtitles here of what that is. But I've got a Dremel here with a carving unit, and I'm just going to go through each one of these stars and do it. It's going to take a minute or two to do each star. I've done this many times, so I feel more comfortable with it now than ever. However, it's still pretty hard. So what I would suggest is, if you're new to this, you're going to do this for the first time, especially when the flag is almost done and you don't want to ruin it, you know, put some stars on some other wood and do some practice. What I do that works pretty well for me is I'll get really comfortable in a solid base, and then I will just do one line of the star at a time of each star, and then I'll come back and do the other side. Also works better with the grain than against the grain, but you'll get some practice on doing that because the bit reacts differently with the grain and against the grain. But the intent here is to outline all these stars, and then I'll come back and remove the material in between, and we'll be that much closer to being done with this project. Okay, you know, after about an hour and a half or 2 hours, took a break or two in there, finally have these stars dremeled in here, carved in here. They look great. I know when you do them, you know, you're gonna be thinking, oh man, I made a mistake, and it would be great to have them just perfect, but actually there's, like I said, character in the imperfection. But just take your time, get some practice in doing it, and you know, it looks great and people appreciate it. So, but anyway, flag is completely done now. I'm going to put a couple coats actually of indoor-outdoor polyurethane on it, on the front and back. That way, if someone wants to put this outside, they could, and it'll maintain for a while. But so let me put the polyurethane on it, and we'll look at the finished product. Okay, I think we're finished. So I put 2 coats of polyurethane on it, high gloss. Again, that's choice. But I think the poly really brings it to life. Certainly gives it some more character. But happy the way this turned out. I guess in summary, some keys here would be, you know, again, I've given you kind of a rough shape and dimensions for cutting and carving. But you shouldn't be limited to that, and especially if you make a mistake or unsure, whatever, there really are no rights or wrongs on it. And then just take your time on carving out the stars if you haven't done that before. If you don't have a Dremel, you know, you can use a regular chisel. You could probably buy some stars and spray this white first, and then put the stickers of the stars on here where they need to go, and then come back and stain over top of it and remove the stickers, and it would look really good too. Probably be less time and effort. Anyway, good luck on this. Appreciate you watching the channel. Check out our other channel. We'll put a link at the end of the episode here. But until then, be safe, have fun, make some sawdust.